ready?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. We want to welcome you to our June 5th study session. We ask that you turn off or silence all cell phones. Our meetings are televised every day on Channel 2 at 7 p.m. and at midnight. First item on the agenda is project presentation and CID request 1904, 1920 Spruce Street.
And Taylor, our Assistant City Manager, handle this item.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem and Commissioners. This is a presentation tonight about plans for a potential project at the former Country Mart property. As this is a study session, it's a purely informational presentation, as no action can be taken. Staff will gauge the interest of the elected officials later on and work with the developer as needed. The developer is present and questions can be asked of him, and we can also relay any additional questions you have later on if those come about. So I'd like to introduce Mr. Pat Nassy. He's of Development Dynamics, and then Mr. Trent Overhue of AFS Leavenworth. And if you guys want to take a seat and share a little bit about the project.
How are you guys doing?
Pretty good. How are you?
Great.
Excited to be in your community, so I've had a chance to kind of drive around, and we're excited to be here. So Pat's going to talk a little bit about the initial part of the process, and I'll kind of talk about our concept and get your feedback and kind of go from there. So.
Commissioners and Mayor Pro Tem, we just wanted to make sure you're familiar with the property. It's the old Country Mart with the Family Dollar that's attached. Project that needs, it's a 60s, 70s style that needs some reinvestment in order to accommodate it. We're proposing to create a community improvement district with a 1.5 cent sales tax that then goes to help apply for some of the redevelopment costs. Total project investment is roughly about $2.5 million in the building. Fixing it up, tearing it down, putting a whole new facade on there, touching up the parking lot. You have some preliminary renditions inside your packet. Those are early, but from a historical standpoint, Trent and I have worked on a number of projects together, and his stuff is always end product looks better even than the renditions do. It's important for those properties to look good, so it's interior climate controlled. Family Dollar would stay there, at least if they can work out deals, and Trent will talk a little bit about some of his discussions with there, which would generate some revenues to help offset some of the improvement costs. If you're receptive tonight, our intentions are, and we've had some conversations with Taylor about proceeding then to the next phase, which would be to prepare the petitions and all the necessary documents in order to create a CID and have that process move forward. Trent, I think, can talk a little bit about his business and what he's thinking about for this property.
Sure. Basically, what we come in any community and look for basically a need as far as our indoor self-storage goes, and then we start looking at are there any buildings available, and this building fits our needs real well because it's a well-positioned center, has a lot of square footage more or less, and then we like the co-tenancy as well. So our intentions are to kind of come through, basically make that building look like a new building, clean that corner up, and make it just an eye-appealing center more or less. I've had some conversations with the Family Dollar. I know they had been looking to vacate, but there was some uncertainty with the past ownership. Obviously some maintenance issues that needed to be addressed, and I think since we came through, they're looking forward to a change and want to stay with us. I talked to the.
I hope they would, because they're in that part of town. There is really
not
a lot for retail at all.
Sure.
A lot of people live in that neighborhood, and a lot of people even on post come in and shop there. So.
Yeah, I think, and from when that Country Mart closed, was it a Country Fresh?
Country Mart.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Country Mart. Okay. I know that since then their sales have been fairly strong.
Yeah,
So I
yeah.
think they're happy with where they're at, and I expect them to stay, so.
Great.
I
That's
talked
good to
the
hear.
Area manager a few weeks ago, and it sounds like they're gonna try to make an investment back into that store and kind of clean it up, add some cooler space and.
Wonderful. I'm glad to
give it
hear
a
that.
little bit of a facelift, so.
Okay. I know the people, I mean, I hear, because I live in that neighborhood, I know,
Sure.
I hear a lot about the grocery store being gone, so anything that
it's,
can do to help that would be,
Yeah. And I know it hasn't been terribly long, but in the past, some of these buildings, the longer they sit, they go downhill in a very short amount of time, so.
Yeah, there's one in the parking lot right there on Spruce that's going down.
yeah.
It doesn't take long.
It's one ugly building too, honestly.
Yeah, but no, this one honestly, it, as far as structure-wise goes and everything, it's gonna take some work, but all in all, it's not a terrible building. I like the corner, I like a lot of things it has going for it. We just, it just needs a little help to get it to a modern looking feel, and that's kind of what we go for. And you'll see through some of our projects, most of them are very eye appealing. When people drive by, they're like, holy cow.
Yeah.
We get it all the time, they're like, that looks phenomenal. When we leave, the cities are very happy that we're there, so.
Well, I think if it turns out anywhere like your Conceptions here,
Yeah, they're beautiful.
it'd be a
It's
blessing to that area.
Yeah, it's a cool concept, and the nice thing, it's not like we're here and we're gone. We keep everything in-house. We have management teams that come through every 2 weeks, make sure the property is kept up, cleanliness, parking lots, the whole 9 yards. So you'll be seeing us quite often, and they're staffed 7 days a week, so there'll always be somebody there if there's an issue.
Is this 24 hours or is it?
No, I've learned the hard way, and I try to limit like 6 to 10 o'clock. If not, you get some folks that you don't want in there. So.
Right.
That's what I was wondering about too. In this, the climate controlled concept, so the entrances to the, units are on the outside or are they on the inside?
They'll be on
Confused
the
about that.
inside. We put up some fake doors basically to give us a little bit of exposure, so
Oh, that one, okay, got it.
people kind of know that we're there and what our concept is, kind of differentiate ourselves from an old grocery store. But everything will be inside.
Okay.
We monitor humidity and temperature, and they're very, very nice when they're done. Most people come through and they're like, holy cow.
So they're, and to get into the building, is the building open all the time?
No, they have,
They have access
gate
to it.
or punch pads.
Good,
and,
I don't wanna see homeless living in there.
No, in our security, we go above and beyond. Like, we'll go to the point of, we'll have like, almost like laser beams on the top to prevent anybody from on the roof. Inside, we'll have motion sensors in the evening, so anybody in that building will know about very, very quickly. And not to
Good.
mention, we'll have probably 40 to 50 cameras. So security in this business, like, it is very, very important. So you start getting break-ins, you'll get a bad name, especially in a tight-knit community pretty quick.
Have you talked to the owner at Play Bounce and Jump?
I have.
Did you decide to stay?
From what I know, he's going through a few challenges with some new laws, but from what I can tell, he's planning on staying. So I'd like him to, but I haven't heard anything otherwise. I'll put it that way.
How long's your company been in business, and do you have other facilities like the one that you're contemplating here in Leavenworth?
Yeah, we've done this concept quite a bit. I just finished one in Topeka not too long ago. That'd be probably the closest one.
Okay.
This past spring, I got 2 done in Omaha.
Okay.
Prior to that, I did one in Jeff City,
Okay.
one in Des Moines.
So you you have a regional
Yep.
footprint.
I'm from Springfield, Missouri, so I have
Okay.
several of the same concepts there. So I'm very familiar with it. It just, every building has its own array of challenges, and facades change a little bit.
So you've obviously had to have done some market analysis, because you feel that there's enough customers here, there's enough people who will avail
Yeah,
themselves
I
of
like
this.
your military aspect here, because from what I can tell, there's not a huge amount of climate-controlled storage. So when people come in, I mean, it's a little bit different product than what you typically see on your outdoor storage.
right.
Because, I mean,
Yep.
there you're subject to a lot of pests, humidity, heat, cold. I mean, this weather, I mean, it's all over the board. So we get a lot of people moving homes. Like I said, the military, I think, will be a big pro for us.
Okay.
And we'll try to get involved with everything we can to make sure we have a good relationship with them, so.
So the business model is that your company comes in and makes this investment to bring this particular facility up to, you know, a lot higher standard with respect to its appearance and its functionality and everything, and then you operate it?
Correct.
Okay.
And we really take pride in our management as well, so we try to find just, I call them rock star managers that are on top of everything, make sure everything goes accordingly, and then we have assistants and maintenance guys and all that take care of a lot of the other problems, so.
And generally, in terms of a timeline, once, I mean, if we were to look at this favorably in terms of when, you know, modifications and the development starts until you finish, do you have?
I'm very proactive,
Okay.
so it won't be, you'll see things very, very quickly. So we just finished those two up in Omaha,
Okay.
and I have one in Wichita, gonna start here fairly soon. And so I got a little time, like, I'll be honest, right now, we're over there kind of cleaning floors and just
Sure.
getting things cleaned up a little bit. There's been a lot of trash and all that around, so
Yeah.
try to address that before it gets too out of hand, so. But to answer your question, it won't be very long at all, so.
Are you considering storage of any vehicles, you know, like plastics or anything that somebody wants?
I've done it in some other facilities, but since this is a smaller footprint than I normally deal with, I won't have the square footage to allow that. Like Topeka is actually they drive through the facility, and you would be able to do something like that at that concept, but this one would not. It wouldn't work just because of the way it's set up.
Then my other question, and I'll leave you alone for a while.
You're fine.
On your construction, are you gonna be using local companies, or you have your own crews that you bring with?
I'll bring a lot of my own, like, GCs in, but as far as electricians, the mechanical side of things and plumbing will be all local. The storage partitions in particular will be a company, they travel
Right.
around and that's all they do is erect
And that's understandable.
that, but, everybody, I mean, local trades will pretty much be electricians, plumbers, and the mechanical guys, so.
So what your monthly rates?
It's all over the board.
I see a family's, affordable family storage.
It depends if we're at a 5x5 or a 10x20, so,
Yeah, that makes sense.
but no,
Nice size.
as far as the market goes, we're very, very competitive. So usually we're under what the normal market rates are, and that's why we fill fairly quickly,
Right.
so.
Approximately how many storage units can you get in that building?
I wanna say it's probably gonna be 400 to 500.
Wow.
A lot of ours are 700 to 800 ones, but they're, like, a lot of them that we buy a lot of the Kmart's, and they're 100 to 125,000 feet. And, I think with the Family Dollar and the Jump House place, I think we're at 60,000 feet that we have to work with, so. It's a little bit smaller than I like, but I think it's suitable for this market.
Okay.
How many years has your company been in business?
Me personally have been about, 11 or 12. Everything we do is in the family, so it's my folks and my brother, and mom and dad have been around for
Sure.
probably 30-plus years. So I don't want to date them, but it's been a long time.
Okay.
And I grew up around them, so.
Did you grow up in the Midwest, or?
I grew up in Iowa,
Okay.
southwest Iowa, so.
I have a handful of questions if you don't mind.
I'll go.
Yeah.
Can you talk about the vacant areas outside of Family Dollar and Play, Bounce, and Jump? What's your strategy? Who do you look to fill? And do you often do these type of projects in buildings that have second and third and fourth spaces? And kind of tell me how you guys look at filling those type of retail spaces.
I mean, as far as the existing spaces that we'll be filling them.
Right.
So we'll take everything that's currently available, so there will be, once we're done, it'll be 100% occupied.
Okay, but like on the far end, that's between the Old Country Mart and you, there's vacant space in different areas. What kind of retail do you typically get
We'll
tracked?
be going in that as well.
You'll be going in that? So you won't be all in one area, you'll be in all the vacant space that's not Family
I'd
Dollar?
like to be, but like I said, to get the necessary square footage we need, we'll have to take, I think it's probably 10,000 feet on that far end, so that would be part of it.
Okay. Can you talk a little bit about your decision to go for a CID? And the reason that it kind of struck me as odd when I first saw it come through was you're not a sales tax-based business.
Sure.
And the CID is a sales tax-based incentive. I expected to see a property tax abatement or industrial revenue bonds or something like that. So what's the idea behind the CID?
It's not a huge generator, but I mean, we've done this in the past, and we have some co-tenancy. It allows us to kind of get in there, fix up the facility more or less, and it doesn't really, I wouldn't say affect the city, but it doesn't have a huge financial investment from the city. So that's kind of why it's kind of the path of least resistance for us.
Yeah, my only concern is that it is grocery based, and the Family Dollar and that end of the store. And have you talked to them about your proposal to put a 1.5% CID on the project?
I haven't talked to them directly. I know they're very excited about having an updated facade and all that. So I mean, I feel like if we clean that up, it'll draw some additional traffic to them to kind of offset the tax. So
You mentioned.
Can I touch on that just a little further?
Yes, please do.
So, the approach that we're taking places, what I'd say most of the risk on AFS, not only to make the improvements, but then to recover over time. So our thought is that, beyond trying to do some of the other things where it impacts other taxing jurisdictions as well as the city, Trent's been willing to take that risk based on other history. This isn't the first time that he's had the co-tenancy where the sales tax would be generated, and it's worked out well. So it's kind of a tried and true process that we're relying on to get that renewal, or another tenant in the event that renewal doesn't happen, and to help generate some of the revenues to offset these costs.
But you don't have an idea of what those revenues are because you don't probably have access to Family Dollar sales or Play, Bounce, and Jump
We have
sales, so it's a
thumb in the air, pretty good idea, but not an exact number, no.
Okay. You mentioned touching up the parking lot. Can you expand on that a little bit?
we'll go through and reseal, restripe.
Because it's a big parking lot, and you won't need 80% of that parking lot.
Correct. But no, it's all part of it. Like I said, our appearance is everything in this business. So if a lot of our storage customers are women, so if they do not feel safe when they come in, it's not well lit, we don't get that tenant from us. So they'll go regardless of what the price is to what's nicest, cleanest, and they feel the most secure. So we'll go through, we'll put up new LED lighting in the parking lot, have it well lit. I don't know if you've been by there at night, but it's extremely dark. It just needs a complete revamp, more or less. So.
Do you guys also sell like boxes or tape and stuff like that? So you would generate some sales tax off of those items,
Yeah,
probably.
we sell boxes, locks, the standard moving supplies, and like I said, it does bring in some revenue because a lot of people are moving homes and all that come store with us.
Sure.
This community improvement district incentive, is this not talking about the amount or anything, but is this the same incentive that we talked about and granted the gentleman who was building and developing a drugstore and pharmacy in?
No, so that was a sales tax exemption on their building materials.
Okay.
This would be similar to an incentive given to part of Zech Ford's package that they were provided. So when someone goes to buy a car there, their sales tax is a little bit higher. This would be the same type of thing.
Oh.
So it would come to the city commission would come up with a list of allowable expenses. They would submit paid invoices on those allowable expenses, and then we would rebate that extra sales tax back to them. That's how that typically works, yeah. Usually on a quarterly basis.
Okay.
Do you own the property currently?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mr. Kramer, if I can mention one additional thing. We've had situations that have been a little bit frustrating where we've gone in and made, where Trent's gone in and made some substantial investment. Any benefit that's been generated as a result of the district is offset by increased assessed valuations. Mm-hmm. And so improving the property is offset by everything that you're generating. So if we could talk about that, and I'm not saying right now, somehow, at the end of the day, when the project's done and improved, how that impact on the overall property taxes and when that kicks in. Not saying a freeze, but reasonability, if you know what I mean.
Well, that would be, you're getting into another incentive, or you're looking at doing something with a property tax, lit or anything like that, and that would be part of this discussion. That would be related to an incentive. So anything like that would have to be presented in a development agreement.
Well, sometimes it's just a reasonability discussion with the appraiser. Is my point.
Yeah, I wouldn't see that it would increase the property tax.
Well, our experience has been that it's been tough sometimes, so we want to have that discussion up front.
One, I got an incentive to make the property tax tripled. So that's why we err at the side of caution. So everything that we got from an incentive, we were paying 2/3 higher for fixing up a property that was at a pretty low base to begin with. So
yeah, I could get you in touch with our contacts at the county and see what they think from your renderings and go from there.
That'd be great.
Yeah, I think that would help. Anything else?
Okay.
Good questions.
Well, we'll make it quick. So we just ask for, your consideration. We're going to work with Taylor on trying to get the documentation in. Hopefully you'll see it in a couple weeks, or I'm not sure what your meeting schedule is, but we can get adequate documentation in the next few weeks to you and get this process rolling.
Okay, great.
No, like I said, we're looking forward to it. Like I said, I think you'll see some good improvements to that corner. Do you guys have any questions?
No, it's very interesting.
You've answered everything.
How far are you from that area?
I live right behind it.
Oh.
The street, 21st Street. That's 20th right there.
Very close.
And one block over, yes.
Very nice. So, well, hopefully you start seeing cleaned up a little bit and some parking lot lights on and some positive improvements.
Great.
But,
Very interesting. Thank you for.
appreciate you guys' time.
Thanks for the
Talking to
presentation.
us.
Yeah, thank you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Take care.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda, online registration reservation software review, Tyler Parks and Recreation.
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem and Commission, I'm going to let our Parks and Recreation Director give you all a sneak peek about something that we're pretty excited about, that they've been working pretty hard on over the last couple months.
Thank you, Paul. Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem, Commissioners. It is with great excitement and anticipation that I bring forward to you this evening. It's just kind of an overview of what we'll be going into with our Parks and Rec online registration reservation. It's called Tyler Parks and Recreation. It is a Tyler Technologies program, which our financial system, Munis system, is also a Tyler Technology program. So we're very excited. We're just in the training and the building, constructing of this site. But we've come a long way, and again, I'll reiterate, we will have this up and going this year. It's hard to give a date, as we have a lot of back office work and then a lot of training to do. Our goal is to have it up and running before our basketball registrations this fall, and I think we'll get there fairly easily. So what it is this is the website that citizens will see when they go to register for any classes, any baseball, softball, rent picnic shelters. The way they'll get to this site will be on the city's website, the Parks and Rec website, where we will typically talk about, like we have the activity book on there now. We'll have a link on there that'll say to register for classes or for shelter reservations, click on this link. And this is the site that it'll take them to. This site here, you see the word train up top, and that is exactly what this is. This is for our staff, our implement team, which basically consists of myself, Carol Charity, our IT manager, and then Marcella Williams, our Parks and Rec administrative assistant, are the main three on the city side that are working with the Tyler implementation team. And so in this site here is where we pretty much began building everything. There's a lot to it when you build a class. When you think of a youth baseball team, say youth baseball 7 to 8-year-olds. Well, you've got to obviously have their ages in there. You have the different, baseball, softball, so you have male, female. There's the locations, there's the costs, the fees, everything that goes along with it. So there's a lot of administrative input that goes into this, and as you all well know, we have a ton of classes as well as facilities for rental. So what I wanted to do tonight is I'll run you through it. Though this is the train portal, it'll operate exactly the same way once we go live. What you see here is exactly what you will see and the citizens will see at that time, with some modifications. The pictures that you see scroll across here, those can be personalized to the city of Leavenworth. You can probably, if you can see on the outer edges of the background, you can tell that that's Landing Park that Marcella has put in there as a backdrop to this, with the Missouri River there. Some of these pictures, these are just some general sports pictures that they've put in there. I do believe Marcella put one in there for us. Yeah, there's Woolman Aquatic Center. So eventually on our live portal, you'll go in there and it'll scroll from there to maybe Sports Field to maybe Cody Park, different things like that. So it'll customize really well to the city of Leavenworth. Also on this front portal page, we'll have different ways. There's different ways you can get to the classes. If you come to here and you know exactly what you want, you're wanting to register your son or daughter for youth baseball or youth softball, you can click right here on youth sports. And as you click on that, all right, let's see. How do I get back?
Training.
Yeah, let's. Back arrow there. Is there a back arrow? Let's see here. There we go. I had to get rid of the full screen so I could get to the back arrow. All right, not sure what I clicked there, but I'm gonna click on youth sports again. I think it might have moved on me. Okay, so what that brings up there, then there's all of our youth sports, boys baseball and all the different age groups, instructional baseball, girls instructional softball, and then right there, what you can do is you can go straight in and register. Gives all the information, a little description of the program, the start dates, what the fee is. And you'll notice the fee on these is $75, and that's because where we're at on the date now, when we put them in, it's already into the late season. So it's added that $25 late fee. So the program will do all of that automatically based on the dates that you've put in, as well as resident and non-resident for shelters, and it'll charge accordingly based on that. So if you're to register for the boys baseball, you go just like any website where you're purchasing something. You'll go in here, it has all your information, tells you where it's at, sports field, the amount, what you've registered for, sir.
What about the scholarship program?
The scholarship program we'll have on here, we haven't figured out exactly how to do that because we're still in the building process. But we intend to have it on here as well. And obviously we're a place where you can upload documents, your documentation for the scholarships. So if I want to go ahead and register for this, if I want to try and add it to cart, okay, it's going to not let me. Why is it not going to let me? Because right here, you have to check this box. So what we have in here is our registration disclaimer, basically our hold harmless. Right. So for any class or anything you're registering for, whether it be ballroom dance or youth sports, we have the disclaimer. So then I check that box, I've read it. There's an add-on down here with our baseball programs. It comes with a youth jersey. The fee obviously is $0. So they go ahead and put in their jersey size, and then they can add that to cart, and that tells you right there what you have in your cart. Now, just like any account, or just like any website where you go to purchase something, you're required to set up an account. So if I've gone through to this point, and this is my first time on here, and I have not set up an account, if I go to try and check out here, it's going to require me to sign in. So all you have to do is sign in an initial first time. Once you're in the system, you're in the system for the rest of the time. If you're not in there, it'll ask you to sign up now. And it'll go through all this information, contact information, billing address. The billing address, as I mentioned earlier, the program will automatically say whether that person's a resident or non-resident based on the parameters we put in there, which is City of Leavenworth / Fort Leavenworth. And then the email, and then the confirmation of the email. And what it'll do is after you've put in there, and then you go to check out and you have an account, then it'll send you to an off-site pay engine. And with this, it's called Bridge Pay, and that's a secured site. So there's never any numbers or credit card numbers or anything goes through this site. It all goes to a secured site where payment for all of that.
Steve, is there a way, or do you already have it implemented, that if you've got room for 100 people in this one sports and 101 comes in to sign, does it allow it, or does it tell it that you're full? You can
put it on a waiting list. They'll have a waiting list on there. If there's something that we absolutely have a ceiling on, we really don't. We take registrations for all of our youth sports, and even if they come in really late, we find a place for them. So typically we don't have a ceiling, but there is a place where you can add a waiting list, and it would be on the main list of classes there as well.
I have a question. If you've got 3 kids and they're in different levels, and you're able to do that on here and put their name in and put the different level, all in one transaction, you don't have to do 3 different transactions for each.
Correct. You can add all 3 of them to the same cart.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, you can do the same thing. I'll show you here real quick.
And then you put the child's name in, so you
Right.
have a different.
Right, and as you fill out your contact information, you'll fill out. It'll ask for dependents and who your dependents are, and then as well as their date of birth. So it won't. If I have a 12-year-old and I'm trying to sign them up for 9 and 10-year-old baseball, it won't allow me to.
Okay.
And it knows all that information when you sign in for it.
Okay.
The other item that will be on this activity guide that you'll be able to select, it's not on this train, but it will be when we go live, is for rentals, shelter reservations and such. That's one way you can click on that. You can also browse. You can browse classes. If I click that, it'll bring up every class we have, whether it be ballroom dance, baseball, softball, what have you. like if I browse facilities, I think I clicked it. It'll bring up all of our facilities. Cody Park Shelter, our ball fields, because you can rent ball fields for practice, for games. I'll just go through real quick. If I want to rent Cody Shelter, there's two ways I can do it to see if it's available. If I know what date, my daughter's birthday is on June 15th, and the location, make sure I do this right, because this is kind of new to me too, so I might. So if I click on shelters and June 15th, it'll pull up only the shelters that are available. So if Cody wasn't available that day, it wouldn't pull it up. Okay. So from there, I can go in here, I can register. Tells me right there it's $35 for a resident, $40 for a non-resident. There's a PDF here you can pull up for the park shelter policies that we give everybody when they rent a shelter. If I try and add to my card here, it's not going to let me. Reason being, we need, from a maintenance standpoint, we require how many people are coming. So say if we're going to have, say 50 people, and then it gives a brief description, the size of the shelter, where it's at. Rental includes 10 picnic tables. There's a place for add-ons, and that's going to be true with just about every class or anything. If there's any type of add-on that you can buy extra, whatever it might be, then there'll be a place for add-on. Obviously, if you've ever rented a shelter, you know you can buy additional picnic tables for $5 a piece, and then when I add it to the cart, it'll add those to the amount. So I add that to the cart, and then that kind of answers your question, Commissioner Bauer. Since I just did one for the boys, now I have 2 items in my cart. I didn't log out, but I also didn't pay it. So I have 2 items there. Same thing, I go to check out from that point. It's going to ask me to set up an account. And
then you got all the information in.
Right.
Okay.
Let's see, I'll show you real quick. And the other way I did an available date there. The other way to see the availability I can go click on facility availability, the calendar, and then I can pick whichever park I'm looking at. So if I was looking at Cody Park, and then obviously at Cody Park, there's all these different items you can get, the ball field, game field. So if I was looking at Cody Shelter, it'll bring up its availability. That's for the week of June 3rd through 9th. I can switch that to month. We haven't set any, obviously it hasn't been rented any for this month. We did do a couple in May. So that right there will show you, just setting up, we did test one May 1st and one May 25th. So if I were to go in and try and rent on one of those days, it wouldn't be available. So that's just kind of another way. If you know you want to have it at Cody Park, you can go find when it's available. Or if you know what date you want to have it, because that's little Joey's birthday, then you can put the date in and find out what facility is available.
Now, if they click on that blue bar, does any information pop up?
I don't believe so. We get the information on the administrative side. We have an administrative portal that sends all that information, who's registered, when it is, have they bought extra picnic tables. As far as other citizens, no, they don't. All they get is it's rented and not available. Right. So with that, that's kind of the basic operations. Like I said, we are now working on what's called the live environment, which is a lot of the stuff that we've built, and there's a lot more to deal with, like scholarships and what have you. So there's a lot more to it, and then some training for our cashiers at the community center, because it'll all run through them. But ultimately, the best way for this to work is for people to do their registrations at home, and that's what we're excited about, and I'm sure the public is too.
So will they be able to book the community center rooms through this as well?
At this time, we're not sure if we're going to be able to do that, just because they need to typically meet with Tammy,
Yeah.
talk about setup, talk about, there's a ton of add-ons, as you know, I'm
Yeah.
sure, from renting down there, between the dance floor and all different kinds of chairs. And then typically they like to tour the facility, especially if they haven't been there
Sure,
before,
yeah,
and
that
see
makes
the
sense.
rooms. Yeah, and actually sit down. But that's not to say absolutely not. We get in this enough and get comfortable enough with it, and then figure out
You
how we
might be able
can
to
make.
see if they're booked certain days, so if you're gonna choose your date, then you
Right.
choose a date and then call Tammy.
Yeah, and that would be definitely a way to do it, where they could go in and say, hey, the Riverview room is available on that date, we want to have our wedding reception, let's book it, and then we'll go in and talk about it. So I think it's absolutely possible. I think we're
That's
kinda-
later though.
Yeah, we're kind of going in with baby steps at this point, but, and taking care of a lot of the major transactions that we deal with, which that's a major one, as you know as well, as Tammy's very busy with that, so, so I think so.
Great.
Yeah, we're excited about it.
It's very user-friendly.
Yeah, it seems to be.
So this is a module that is kind of part of the Tyler Technology Financial Company or corporation, or, I mean,
Yeah, we've now instituted a lot of their modules, and they all talk to each other. They all meet with our financial system.
That's good.
We couch it as a financial software system, but it's really an enterprise system
exactly.
that we've been able to deploy throughout the city.
And they're there if there are problems, I mean, in terms of, once it's deployed, I mean, is there
Yeah,
there help, or?
They've been very helpful. We
Okay.
currently use Tyler Cashiering, and they're very responsive to our cashiers when they call with any type of issue. Even after hours, as you know, we're open till 8 down there at the community center, and they've called, 7 or 8 o'clock in the evening with issues and had good response, so.
Because these new software programs can be challenging. I think the trend has been in recent years that they've gotten, with the increase in the sophistication of the software and the hardware and everything, they've gotten a little bit easier, but it is good. We've had this since 2015 in terms of the.
Yeah, when we first started the financial,
Right.
and
That's
we
good.
continue to roll out the modules.
Yeah, that's good.
great.
Who will be the system administrator for this website? And once you're up and running, is it one of your?
Marcella Williams will be the key player,
Okay.
who's our administrative assistant in the Parks and Rec office. And she's been extremely instrumental in building all of this. And I went in and messed around with some of it, on this train, and which is all fine and good, but if you channel everything through one person, I think the level of consistency is a lot better, and that's what we're doing as we go into the live.
Has she had
version.
training, or just have an aptitude for this type of thing, or?
We've all been in a lot of training here for the last couple months, sessions with Tyler Parks and Rec. And it started off with just the bare roots of this. Now, as from a working with computers standpoint, yeah, she's fantastic.
Okay, good.
Way better than I am.
Sure.
Will the schedule of the games be on the website as well too?
It will not. No, this is more of a, this
It's
is
registration.
registration type thing, right?
Sounds good.
Any other questions?
No, just want to emphasize, it's not live yet.
Right.
We were hesitant about when to do this, but they've made a lot of progress on training, and we want to just kind of show and let you know what we've been working on, but it'll be live soon.
I have one other
Exciting.
question, and I know most everyone has technology, but I mean, if someone doesn't, could they still come and do the old
Absolutely.
manual way?
Absolutely, and what will happen is our cashiers will put them into this system.
Okay.
Up at the front desk there, so they're still going into the system so that we can produce the spreadsheets of the different teams and everything.
Okay.
They'll still go into the same system, but they can come in and do it in person.
Good.
So, but to avoid lines and waiting on
Yeah,
people
yeah.
getting put into,
Right.
we fully
Yeah.
recommend.
I mean, there's
doing it.
definitely efficiencies associated with this upgrade, right?
Oh, absolutely.
From the standpoint of your staff and.
Right. And just the shelter reservation, we reserve, most of our shelters this time of year, now they're backing off a little bit because it's getting hot, but pretty much every one of our shelters is reserved at some point over every weekend, at least up to this point. So, yeah, and for people to be able to do it online, it's just,
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be
where's
nice.
this been forever, really. So,
Great.
yeah, we're excited.
Save a lot of time.
Yes, very much so.
Take it seriously.
Okay, thank you.
That's it, seriously. Next item on the agenda, special meeting, which will
Yeah, you have to
require
make a motion to.
At this time, I'll entertain a motion for special meeting.
I move that we go into special meeting.
Second.
Motion has been seconded. Begin voting with Commissioner Griswold.
Aye.
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 Motion granted.
First item, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem and Commission, is to consider Thornton Street design contract. Thornton Street has been a topic of much interest the first part of this year. Staff has been working on Thornton Street along with our partners at Appendix for a couple of years now. Appendix has done a couple intersection studies with the Kansas Traffic and Engineering Assistance Program, and then in 2016, Appendix completed a concept design study for Thornton Street from 10th Avenue to 2nd Avenue, incorporating results of that TEEP study. Appendix's work is included. You'll see it's pretty detailed. This is where staff has gotten all the information we've shared with the commission about the project over the last couple of years. So having Appendix's expertise and hours of work on this project, we have been working on a negotiated design contract with Appendix to continue their work. A lot of the work they've done they'll be able to continue and use and move forward. I won't speak for Appendix, but we've beat them up pretty good on this design contract and believe what we have before you is a fair and good contract to begin the design on Thornton. I'm going to let Kristen from Appendix speak about the project a little bit. There's a couple things I wanted to point out that were important to us. This includes public meetings that Appendix will prepare for and put on, both two large group public meetings, public information meetings, but then also individual meetings with property owners. So that was important. They'll do all the probable cost information study, and then I thought it was interesting that on here that we'll need easements on about 63 tracts of property. So because of all the homes along the scope of the project. So it's a complicated project as far as easements and utilities and roadways. So again, our Public Works Director and representative from Appendix.
I've got one real quick question before you get started. Is there any design change on the intersection at Maple and Thornton?
At this point, the contract is to design what is basically shown in the concept drawing. If there's a radical change that is desired by the commission, it's certainly capable of being designed, everything from.
It's designed like it is now.
That the intent is to move forward with
What it looked like to me.
Right. It's on page 5, I believe the plan set, which would be the, in that area. We kind of went through a couple different iterations working with staff and just knowing that it's kind of a complex situation with all the roads coming in there. And this was the concept that we landed on. It allowed us to pull the sidewalk away from the road, which gives that buffer. Really gives everybody a clear line of the through traffic going east-west and tees up those intersections so there's no confusion there for who has the yield and who has the through movement through there.
Good, it is confusing.
I think the important part is there, the west 7th leg in front of the apartments that will have a turnaround. Currently, they kind of enter onto Thornton. We've shown it that they would have to go up to something that access Shrine Park Road or over to Broadway, but they would not be able to drive straight through to the end of West 7th. I think it just shows the 7th Street on the plans, but it's West 7th.
So you can't get there off of Maple then? Or you can't drive straight through?
Yes.
No, that's correct.
Okay.
If you're coming from the south, headed north, you can turn left or you can turn right.
Okay.
I did see something in the intersections. There will be an elimination of the West 7th Street connection to Thornton Street.
That is correct, sir. That's what
That's
what
just,
we're
we were just
talking
talking about,
Okay.
correct, yes.
Kristen, do you want to talk about your process and kind of what we'd be looking at?
Absolutely, be happy to. As Paul said, we've been working on this project, doing the concept study and looking at this corridor. We know it's an important corridor to the community as well as the commission. Doing the concept study allowed us to come up with a cost of the project so you guys can prepare a budget and so forth. Now that we're moving into design, just kind of the overview of the process is we're preparing right now to start the field survey work, which our surveyors, they are Appendix surveyors. They'll notify the residents that they will be on site. They'll work primarily in the right-of-way, but they will have to get up in the front yards to get locations of trees where sidewalks are, driveways, those types of details that help us do the design so that there's no surprises. Once, also, the surveyors will be out there gathering utility information. Utilities will be marking in the area, so they'll see a lot of, your residents will see some activity with utility trucks, markings on the ground, flagging, different things like that, but that's all part of the process. That's all the information that we need to do the design. Then, once we have all that, we'll prepare what we call our base map, so that's what we will do the design on. Similar to the aerial, a lot more detail though, as I've said. Then we'll prepare preliminary plans, and that's basically taking what we've laid out in the concept and really refining it more, making sure we have things tied in, looking at where driveways tie in, looking at tree removals, if there are any, looking at impacts to easements, and if we need temporary easements or if there's any permanent easements. Storm drainage, we're looking at doing some improvements on some storm drainage where we have some seepage issues and things like that. So we'll flesh out all those details, and then that's after we have that prepared and we worked with staff on that, then we will set up a public meeting to display those preliminary plans and talk to the residents about those and talk to them about what the scope of the project is, what the improvements are, what the impacts to their specific property are, which is always everybody's first concern. Then we also are always willing to talk about how they will access the project during construction. A lot of people already see what's happening down the road. When the street's torn up, how do I get to my driveway? How do I get to my front door? So those are all questions that we're very familiar in answering. Me personally, these types of municipal projects on residential streets are one of my favorite things to do because I really enjoy talking to the residents and giving them something that they can be proud of with a new street, new sidewalk, just kind of, it's like, I don't know, dressing up the neighborhood and restoring maybe a sense of pride when things start to look a little dingy. A new fresh coat of paint does a world of good. So the same with some new infrastructure. So with that, we'll do the preliminary meeting. We'll showcase all of that, talk to the residents, make sure all their concerns have been answered and addressed. Also reporting to the commission at those times too, at these milestones, so you guys are up to speed on what we're going to be presenting before we're actually presenting that, so you don't get caught flat-footed with questions from your constituents. Then we'll go back into the final design. At this time, we'll be coordinating with utilities, preparing for utility relocations that might be needed, getting into the easements, preparing those documents so staff can start that process of acquiring the temporary easements or any permanent easements that we might need. And then going to bid with the plans. And at that time, once we advertise the project for bid, which will be sometime in 19, once the contractor's on board, we'll have another public meeting that the residents will get to meet the contractor. Because that's who they're going to see out there doing the work, so they need to have a comfort level and put a face to the name of that. And then the contractor will then talk about the schedule of the project, when he's going to be tearing up what, and can speak to those more detailed things like that.
We see it being built in 2 phases over 2 construction seasons, hopefully 2019 and 2020.
We kind of strategically broke it up to help with the budget as well, to cover over 2 fiscal years and then allow for all the work to be completed. It's almost a mile-long project with a lot of driveways, a lot of details. So felt like over 2 seasons gives you some flexibility with funding and everything.
You've worked on similar projects and interestingly complex projects.
Absolutely. Just a little bit about Appendix and our history in the metro area. I've been personally doing this type of work for 27 years, and again, my niche is in municipal roadway construction, stormwater construction, so I'm very comfortable doing that. My company, this is what we do day in, day out, is focused on transportation facilities, roadways, storm sewer, all that's public infrastructure, and as well as our surveyors do that type of work that supports that. So we've got a great system that we use. Some of the communities we've worked in throughout the metro area are Prairie Village, Miriam, Overland Park, Olathe, Lee Summit. On similar projects, Independence and Liberty, doing very similar type projects in your neighborhood, in people's front yards, which is, you know, these people don't see that every day. We do, so we, being sensitive to that, we're able to address their questions, ease their concerns, listen. A lot of times that's all we need to do is listen and make sure that they've been heard and do the best we can to accommodate what their needs might be.
Would this be the first time we work with the Finnis on a project like this within the city, or have we worked with them in the past?
Sometime back, we've worked with the Finnis on Shawnee Street from 10th to 20th. And we've also worked closely with them on much of the pavement management programs the last few years, and then odd intersection studies, and
Yeah.
sometimes ask for free advice on things.
So we've done the Shawnee, or the Choctaw reconstructions down there, the block by block. We put those part of the pavement management
Yeah,
program.
that's
We
true.
were able to do those as well, where we were dealing with business owners and addressing those. And, you know, we're always there as a resource to staff when things pop up that are unexpected. And that's part of the reason that we like working in Leavenworth, is staff is great to work with, and doing this concept study, we really fleshed through a lot of those types of details so we could have a good plan to move forward with design on.
Oh, where's the company based? In Kansas City? Or?
We are actually, Overland Park is where
Okay.
we're at,
Okay.
right down on the 435 corridor.
I had can we get in, if we have a question about the, I guess, the contract language, can I ask that here, or should I wait in terms of just like possible additional services? And I was just wondering what the triggering mechanism for possible additional services would be. I mean,
We try to identify things to make it clear with our consultants on what they're expecting to not do and what we expect them to do, and we try to identify that. If we say, gosh, I really wish we had done something, then they said, well, it's not part of our contract, but it's in the language. So we try to identify those types of things.
Right.
Like the intersection there at Thornton and Shrine Park Road, Maple. If we wanted to come up with a different intersection alignment there, that's probably gonna cost something additional than what is in their fee. If we pursue that, we certainly can, but they would be legitimately asking for some additional funds to design that.
An example would be if you wanted to put a traffic signal in there. It's not warranted, but if you wanted to, then that would be an additional, we've not accounted for that in that location, and there's more detail that is required for that.
So we try to identify as many of
some
those
things
things.
that contingencies are to improve the project, or if you run into something that was unforeseen.
Right, but part of being able to do the concept study allowed us to really identify a lot of those
Yeah,
things,
so
so that we feel like we've got a good solid scope, and not anticipating any of those, but
Right.
obviously, sometimes it's driven by other things.
So this project will start in next year?
Yeah, it'll be starting probably next summer, late next summer for phase 1, and then phase 2 would be in 2020. Probably go, where would you figure, starting west, moving east?
I believe that's kind of what we had lined out. I don't know that, that there's any
Yeah, there's no
rhyme or
compelling
reason.
to go one direction or the other. I don't believe that the trick is to time your intersection so
Right.
you don't have all your detour routes under construction at the same time. And I think as far as starting work on the design, if this is approved, your surveyors are ready to go to work.
Surveyors are ready to start.
If we're talking design, we're talking this year.
Yes.
Correct, yeah, the
What
design
you're
will start
talking about is
immediately.
construction.
Right,
Yeah, next week.
correct, yeah. Design is, the surveyors are ready to go.
I did have one other question. It was a detailed hydraulic design was not performed with the study. I guess that's okay, but just with everything, I mean, we've been discussing hydrology
Right.
and stormwater and all that kind of business, so is that,
I
are we
think-
okay with that?
I think what we did on this was really identified some of the troublesome areas
Okay.
where there are continuous problems with, I think of up on Montezuma, I think there's a constant seepage and stream there that deteriorates your pavement, things like that.
Okay.
So those are the areas that we identified to get some storm structures in place there to catch that so it's not deteriorating your pavement.
Okay.
And installing some under drains as well to help with that, those types of
We- and
situations.
We have also completed studies in the past that identify recommended sizes for the major road crossings of the culverts
Right.
and things, and we would rely upon that. Now, there'll be a cursory review to see if it makes rational sense.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
if they say they dropped a digit in the previous study, it needs to be recalculated, we'd be talking with the finish about a fee.
Yeah, we'll make some recommendations if there are sizes that we're questioning that, or have the capacity, and obviously work with staff on that to make sure it makes sense, and, because it's a brand-new road, we don't want to come back and do anything to it after we get it done.
Either do we.
Yeah. It's not good
Great.
for anybody.
Make sure the water department is aware of this and that they take care of everything before we do it.
That's a good,
They've already started on it, quite a bit of it.
that's a
Yeah.
good point.
Yeah, yeah.
Any more questions? I'll entertain a motion.
I move that the city commission approve the design contract submitted by Affinis Corporation for the Thornton Street Improvement Project, 10th Avenue to 5th Street, in an amount not to exceed $364,900.
Second.
Motion has been seconded. Begin voting with Commissioner Bowder.
Aye.
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 Motion granted. Still a special meeting.
Yep.
All right, next item on the agenda.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. First consideration of ordinance, stormwater program.
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem and Commission, this is the first consideration of the stormwater ordinance that would establish the stormwater system management program. Tonight is just before you for consensus to move to second reading, which would be next week. But attached to this policy report is the full policy report summarizing the issue in detail, and our draft ordinance, which has been vetted all by our legal staff and by our city hall staff. Nothing has changed from the discussions we've had recently. On a second motion, after this, you'll approve on first consideration ordinance or move forward on first consideration the schedule of fees. The schedule of fees is not in the ordinance. We're adopting it as part of the city's overall schedule of fees. So that's why you don't see it in the first consideration ordinance that you have in front of you. The ordinance lays out the program, the rules and regulations that govern the program. Is before you tonight for first consideration. We have staff here to answer any questions you may have.
I thought it was pretty well written. The ordinance itself, I thought it was consistent. Has Mr. Waters reviewed kind of the?
Mr. Waters wrote it.
Okay.
And then, staff spent, 6, 7 drafts back and forth with Mr. Waters. So it's been,
Yeah.
reviewed and, done by our city attorney.
I did have a question in terms of, I think it mentions the director, and I thought is the director you, Mike, as the, no, in the language.
Yeah.
But I was wondering about, is there still a plan for us to hire a program manager for this? And I was just wondering whether we do or not. I just didn't see exact language, tied to the term program manager, so I was just wondering about that.
Yeah, at this point, for the first year or two, I don't believe it would be prudent to bring on a full-time staff member. With the funding level we have identified substantial amount of projects that aren't design intensive, that we're able to put out to bid. Something we want to do, but you're 1.1 million roughly, but you got to take into account some delinquency rates. I mean, you're probably closer to about $1 million, and once you got into salary and benefits, you're probably eating up about 10% of that. So we thought we were sufficient at staff level right now to get started on this project.
But so the language doesn't preclude if sometime in the future, in a few
No,
years,
absolutely
for
not.
going that route?
Right, it does not.
Do we have a list of projects that we're probably gonna be starting first?
Yeah, we have a list of what we've been calling orange fence projects. Projects that particularly affect people's backyards, their front yards, their side yards, their quality of life, that we have. And, as part of this, we'll be sharing all that with the commission and the public. We've talked about public outreach and, notifications, probably a dedicated page on the website where you'll be able to click and see which projects we've done, what we're working on, and what's next with this funding, what we've spent, what's remaining, what we've done, pictures of every project we've done with this funding, so the public knows exactly what we've done. We've talked about signage when we finish a project. This project completed with the stormwater management system project, so that everybody's aware of what we're doing.
Do we have a consensus to move forward?
Yes.
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 All right. Next item on the agenda, First consideration ordinance, amending Appendix F, schedule of fees.
Once again, Mr. Mayor and Pro Tem and Commission, this is adopting the schedule of fees for this program. It is unchanged from the Commission's passing a couple weeks ago. It is just now placed into the schedule of fees among all the other city schedule of fees. As a reminder, the Commission has the authority to review these fees at any time. We typically do it annually. We usually do it at the end of the year. We can certainly move that to the spring. We can do it twice a year. There are no limitations on your ability to adjust or review these fees. So I just wanted to make that clear.
And is that language in this ordinance, or is it somewhere else in the documentation or the? Because I didn't see that language specifically.
Yeah, it's an ordinance just like any other thing where the governing body, through just your powers as the governing body, can review or change ordinances like anything else, should you choose at any time.
But, I mean, we've talked about looking on an annual basis, looking at the fees and seeing whether they're fair and equitable, giving us the revenue that we need to derive. And so we'll be able to do that.
Yes.
Okay.
Questions, concerns? Do we have a consensus to move forward?
Yes.
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 All right, well, we're at the end of our meeting. Does anybody have any questions, topics?
Can I talk about something completely different? Is that okay?
Oh, you go ahead.
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem?
Yes, ma'am.
I heard about another incident over at the library today. What can, okay, as far as I know, a person's business, and I guess the police aren't here today, but as part of a business, they can refuse to, you know, they can refuse, if somebody comes onto the business, they can tell them to leave.
Ban them?
Pardon?
Are you talking about ban them from the facility?
Yes. Can the library director do that? And have we been talking to him about some of these issues? I mean, apparently, there was another incident today, but.
Yeah, there's a process that you can issue a trespass warning.
Yes.
Where they're no longer allowed on the facility. I'm unfamiliar with today's incident, so I'll have to look into it and see with the police department what's going on and speak to the library director.
Apparently it wasn't in the building, it was just right outside in the parking lot, right next to the building, so.
Is it with the same person?
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
The person that brought it to my attention had an issue before in there, and then she talked to us and she took her child back over there. And there's another issue right in front of her. So anyway, I don't know if we need to talk to the director of the building, or do we need to do anything at all? Or is this up to him to make sure that?
I think we need to be involved.
Okay, that's what I'm wondering.
Yeah.
If this is his thing, I think he needs to be involved too. He needs to
Yes.
take some responsibility for this.
Absolutely.
Okay,
Okay.
all right. Good. I know I'm talking in code here, but I'll get with you, Paul, afterwards.
Mr. Betty?
I have nothing.
I'd like just to talk just for a minute or two, and we had a great presentation this evening as far as the design project and contract for Thornton Road. But when citizens talk to me, they usually end up saying, you know, can there be more done to improve the roads within our city? And I hear it a lot. And there are some great roads, but overall, I would say that if I had my druthers, and I would like to make more progress in terms of the improvement of roads within the city. And I know there's a lot of factors that go into it, so I was just wondering, I was just asking if we could in the future have a study session to just talk about roads. I mean, there's the capital improvement aspect of roads, and then there's the maintaining of roads that, you know, different funds and things like that. But I would like the support of my fellow commissioners to sometime in the not too distant future have a study session on that.
Yeah, which brings to mind Third and Cherokee. That's terrible. When you're going southbound down from Delaware, I mean, it's like you're on a roller coaster. The trucks, when we had that as the permanent truck route, were at that area, at that intersection. south side is okay, because that's flat. But, I mean, if there's a way we can come in and cut that down and put some overlay on that.
It just doesn't seem to me. Yeah, and I think there's some big issues we gotta talk, because I don't see us, I mean, the work we're doing is really, really good, but, I'm not sure we're ever gonna get ahead of the proverbial power curve. And I'd just like to talk about it to see, you know, what the factors are.
Money, it's all about
Well,
money.
it is all about money. Yeah, that's probably the biggest factor, and maybe
Yes.
there's, you know, yes, that is one of the factors, but.
Look at prioritizing everything,
Exactly.
but,
Yeah, I mean, maybe there is some money that, and I know that some things have been done over the, I mean, we went from what I understand, from like 700,000 to 1.3 million, right? Which is really good, but it'd be nice if we could find some money within the budget. But I know that we have the budget hearings coming up to increase that amount, because that's important if we're ever gonna get ahead of the power curve on this particular challenge for the city, so.
Well, it's good to discuss it before the budget hearing, so we can identify the problem.
The only thing I'll caution is all roads is in the CIP, which is not in the operating budget that we do over the summer. The CIP we usually do in September, and that's our capital budget, which is a separate process, and all of our road funds come from the capital budget.
Even the $1.3 million I was talking about?
Yes.
Like I said,
But that still doesn't preclude us from talking.
No, absolutely not. Just wanted to say, we won't be talking about roads, this summer when we talk about the operating budget. It's all in the capital budget.
so we okay with that? Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, or, I mean, in terms of
Yeah.
doing it?
You have
Okay.
consensus?
Yep.
Yes,
Yeah.
okay.
All right, anybody else? Motion to adjourn the meeting?
some move. Second.
We out.